When I was working my way up, I always wished that I had the chance to be able to have a little chat with the people that I looked up to, the ones that I saw on stage and really wished that I could be like. Well, my name is Chris Baran, and I have been around probably about 40 plus years now, a couple of hair awards behind me. And I figured I've got the opportunity that I can bring to you the hair heroes that we look up to and admire, and let you have and listen in while we have a conversation and find out their mistakes, find out what they did right and wrong. Welcome to Chris Baran's Headcases. Hey, I'm really excited about bringing you this week's head case, Mr. Eric Fisher. And I want to give you just a few of the awards that this man has had. Top 75 Educator of the Century, Top 10 Living Legends, catch that, nominated 25 plus times for NAHA. His business brain gives him these: 2 entrepreneurial awards from UCLA, 2 global business awards, and he's also received the Jerry Gordon Leadership Awards. Let's get into this week's head case. Eric, I'll tell you, first of all, it is just a pleasure and honor to have you on. And I might add, the numero uno episode of Head Cases. And I'm just honored to be here. And listen, we've been friends, road warriors for quite a number of years. And, just for our listeners' purpose, I want, I'm sure I think there's many people that don't know who Eric Fisher is. But in the off chance that there might be somebody out there that's new to the business or whatever and doesn't know who the hell you are, because earlier I read off all your accolades, and quite frankly, I've seen a lot of resumes before, and this one impressed the hell out of me. But first off, I want to know, and I know a little bit about you, but I know, and your past, where you came from, your parents, etc. But why hair? That's just like what. There's so many people out there that think of hairdressing, and that people just opt into it or whatever because they couldn't get another job or whatever. That's the one myth that's out there. But why hair for you? What got you into
it? That's a good question. I'd say Mom was a hairdresser. And so when I was a kid, she had a place called Aristocrat Hair for Men and Women. And she was like my babysitter. So I used to go watch her work, and I saw the way people treated her, and I really loved it. Like, she'd do somebody's hair and they would be so thankful, so appreciative. They'd hug her, kiss her, and then they'd, reach in their pocketbooks and pay her. And I thought, okay, you get this gratitude, you get this appreciation, you get this love, and then you get some money from it. How cool is that? I mean, what could be better? And I thought, Mom always had a great gig, always. I don't know if she was good. I don't know if she made any money, but I know she looked forward to going to work every day. She loved it. And my dad was military, so he was just a really tough guy. He's big, 6'3", 230, tough guy, fought in a couple wars. He wanted me to go in the military. And I was always siding with my mom and not my dad. I love my dad. But I just didn't feel that connection with that redneck kind of thing, which I love. I love the military, but I just didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
And then I took a girl to prom that was a hairdresser. My girlfriend broke up with me. I was a senior. She was my sister's roommate. And I took her to prom, and she was so good looking. She's 5 years older than me. She was doing me a favor. She was a hairdresser. So she started cutting my hair. And I go in, and the music was great. The girls had short skirts on. The energy was fabulous. I thought, oh my God, this is not my mom's salon. This is a very cool place. And my mother done my hair, since I was a kid. So, I kind of stepped out on her and realized there was a big, bad world out there of really cool hair. So that sparked my interest. That's really what I thought would be really cool.
Yeah. And so now the other thing I want to hit on is just that, let's face it, you've been around the block when it comes to hair. I don't think there's many things that you haven't done, but your start in the business, let's take you went to school, you got there. What was some of the things that really
kicked it off?
Got you going where you really wanted to push the envelope and not just be behind the chair?
I never had this prophetic vision of where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. But my dad said to me, he was a chief test pilot for Boeing. He said, if you're going to do this, do you want to be good? Do you want to be great? Or do you want to be one of the best? And I had no idea how to answer that. I didn't even know what the best looked like. I had no clue. I'm like, I'm doing this for fun. I had no, real vision about being a good anything. I was a musician. I worked nights and I love that, but I wasn't good enough. And I could define quality as a kid. I knew I wasn't going to be good enough to make a living at it. So he took me over to London when I was about 19. Dropped me off at Heathrow Airport. I'm scared to death. He says, I said, what do I do now, Dad? He looked at me in the eyes. He said, now you're a man. You'll figure it out. And he got in his airplane and left me. And I mean, I was scared. I'd never even taken a taxi before. Here I'm in a strange country. I have no idea what to do. But when I got down to Davies Muse, it was the Vidal Sassoon Academy, I saw people, Chris, from all over the world that were coalescing such a positive tribal way, doing these things with hair that were just unprecedented. And all of a sudden, the bug bit me, and I just loved it. It was just fabulous. And I wanted to be really good. And so I studied, I trained, and my little beauty school license, like yours, has taken me around the world. I've worked, London, Paris, Greece, Turkey, Korea, Stockholm, Copenhagen, all over the world, and loved it. And I'm getting paid to do this. And then I got this job in New York City with the famed artist Roger Thompson. And I had to cut a couple heads for him, and I was still freelancing quite a bit. And it was so much fun, and he was such a cool guy, and I got the job with our good friend Brian Smith. And Brian, was an awesome hairdresser, is an awesome hairdresser, and we shared a flat together. And then he went to Europe, I stayed there, and I just loved it. And then, I don't know, I went on from there, and I met this girl in Wichita, Kansas, where I'm from, and we decided to get married, and I had a gig in Italy to do in Bologna, the big Cosmoprof show. So I took her to Italy with me, and we actually got married in the Vatican in Rome. And it was so cool. So I had Dwight Miller, Michael Baker, Van Council, all these, the makeup artists, badass models, John Santini was there from San Riz, Frank, Scarpelli, from a Sassoon guy was there, so it's just fun. Our parents couldn't afford to come. It was just us. And then she didn't want to move to New York, and I said, come on, New York is like I was charging $150 back then. And of course, I only made 20% commission, but I was a badass with Roger Thompson. She didn't want to move there. She convinced me, you're a smart guy. I go, listen, I know nothing about management. I don't think I'm such a smart guy. I don't know how to deal with people. I don't know cash flow, long-term debt, inventory, none of that. I don't want to open a business. She was a lot smarter than I was, and she convinced me. And so I came back, lived in her sister's basement for about 9 months to open a place. That was the beginning of the salon story and the school story and the Prosper You story.
Yeah. I mean, I want to get onto that just in a bit here, but I want to take you back to the Roger Thompson, because there's so many people out there that are from our era that do know who Roger was, but a lot of the younger viewers, listeners in this, they may not know that name, but that was one of probably the most iconic names in the Sassoon organization. And a lot of, because when they published hair photography, always cutting edge stuff, right on they had taken that turn in our industry where everything was shampoo and set and styled, and the haircut really wasn't important. And they took our industry, they turned it upside down by their feet, shook it, and made all the other stuff come out. And then they filled it up with architecture in cutting hair. And the little known fact is that most people that go back to look at those iconic photos, a lot of them were created by Roger Thompson, who I believe was the first creative director for Sassoons. Am I correct on that, or was there somebody before him?
I do believe Roger, was the first guy. And, everybody needs a master. Everybody needs somebody to look up to. So if you can work with your idol, like I know how many people idolize you, Chris, you're held in the highest of esteem in the industry. And it, people, it's more than an influential or more than anything else to have somebody that has done it, that knows how to do it, that can help you. So when I was there, and I wasn't busy, I would go watch Roger with his permission. And he was such a fine craftsman. The best cutters are the best combers. The way he would approach a head of hair, just
Yeah.
the visual integrity, the acuity. He would look at it and he would feel the bone structure and he'd look at the growth pattern. I mean, he did all this way before he even cut the hair. He was like an intimate guy. And you didn't say, Roger, this is what I want to do. Roger would say, this is what you're getting, and it
Yeah.
was always a masterpiece. And very seldom, Chris, would he pick up a blow dryer or a brush. By the time he got done cutting, it was always over an
Got
hour
to
for a
dry.
haircut. It
Yeah.
was beautiful. Graduation would be flawless. I go,
Yeah.
and I thought, my ego was big back in my younger days. It was really big because I was a badass, right? But then I watched a guy like this and I go, oh my gosh, talk about humility, because I'm like, this guy's so good. But it was
Yeah.
such a good lesson for me to be more intimate with the fabric, be more intimate with my time. And it's more about, the technical expertise that it takes to produce a desired result that you have already defined your outcome ahead. He
Yeah.
knew, he
Yeah.
didn't have any discoveries. He knew what he was cutting, little graduations, brush back, little fireflies. And by the way, no long hair at all. Everybody,
Right.
we all did hair above the shoulders, period.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if somebody had long hair and they wanted a haircut, say, no, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
don't do that. We are known. We have defined what we do. And we
Yeah.
are known by our defining statement of cutting the best short hair on the planet. And that's what we did. And it was
Yeah.
great. And I enjoyed my time there.
So let me ask you this: being person now that people know a little bit more about Roger, and also for you in your growth, was he? Tell us a little bit about him. Was he a taskmaster when you were cutting hair?
Now,
What was he like as a
Roger
as
was he's just a wonderful guy, a very sweet guy. I mean, there's a story about him working for a large company and he felt they paid him a huge amount of money to consult and all that. And there was a story about him that he confirmed that they gave him like $20,000. I can't remember the number. And he said, I didn't earn this. I can't take this. So I'm giving it back to you. And that's what an integrity-based individual.
Yeah.
And during the interview, he didn't interview me; somebody else did. And then I reached there were probably 100 people applying for this job that Brian Smith, obviously had and told me about. And then he sat down with me and he was so calming. He had such equanimity. He was just the
Really?
most amazing guy. And he was even tempered, great. He allowed you to make mistakes. That's how you
That's
learn. I mean, just
that's really interesting. That you have somebody like that of that caliber. And if you think back to the old greats, the Michelangelos and etc., the Da Vinci's. I heard. I mean, I'm old enough that I could have probably asked them personally, but um, I do remember hearing stories about them that when his apprentices would come in to learn from him, he would just say, "Well, okay, there's a subject, paint it." And then when they were done, he would tell them to tell me what worked. Tell me, in essence, he was doing a debriefing with them way back then because he didn't show them what to do. He saw what they could do, saw the areas that they needed correction in, and then helped them correct that. And I think that's kind of what sets our industry apart right now. There's educators and things, and God bless them all. Educators, I have the utmost respect for.
me too.
But it's sometimes if you're too full of yourself, that you can be intimidating to other people when they're trying to achieve and see what you're about, and I think it can be made that it's unattainable. Whereas I've known you, and now that I know, I would have given my right arm to be able to have had those experiences with Roger, who was one of my hair heroes. But that's amazing stuff to see that when people let people make mistakes.
He was, and we do the same thing in our school and our salons. Once you reach it, the barometer is always the demand of the clients. If you're in
Right.
demand, I just was in Chicago with a good friend of mine doing a show, and somebody said, "You still do celebrity clients?" And I said, to me now, a celebrity client is anybody that demands you, requests you, comes in every 5 weeks, buys all the retail you sell, tells their friends, read books, leaves you a great review, gets color. That's a celebrity to me. That's the way I
Right.
treat them. So nothing says more. And I've got to reflect back, because ego is something that's good for you and it's bad for you. So when I started
Yeah.
working in the salons, I cut very strong hair. I didn't cut long hair. It was very strong. And sometimes the clients wouldn't come back. And I go, what's wrong with her? I gave her the best haircut. But you know what? Sometimes the haircut was just ugly on that client. But I was Eric Fisher. I had this big ego. I had great training, worked at Roger Thompson's. It took me a long time, Chris, to realize it wasn't about me. It's about the client. And
Yeah.
that was like a metamorphosis for me. And I think Roger kind of, it wasn't in back, we had such a client pool that it was about us. It wasn't about the client. I mean, if they had specific demands, you'd listen, like, I really want to bang, I really want to fringe. Then you go, okay, this will work for you, so I can do that. But other than
Yeah.
that, we weren't order takers, we were order makers,
Right.
and if you said, this needs color, that client better get color, or she's not going to be a client anymore of ours.
Right.
So they had to listen. They had to be there because they wanted to be there, and they wanted whatever we were going to give them. And that was a beautiful thing, I thought. And Roger, as tolerant as he wasn't run about that. He would not capitulate on his high standards. You always had to keep your standards high. And that's why
Yeah.
my standards are so high. And I demand that, in our salons, we have over 100 hairdressers, and we demand that high standard. And obviously the hardest thing about getting bigger is keeping smaller. But every Tuesday night we have class. I never miss. I've done it for over 30 years. Every Monday night we have class. I have somebody else teaching
Yeah.
barbering or color. I coach my own assistant Tuesday morning. She better show up. And my creative director, Trish Duell, coaches 2 people personally. And we pay these guys to be there, by the way. But education and being great, and just being, that skill set is so important. You've got to conquer that skill set. There are other needs that need to be reflected on, your relationship skills and business skills, all that kind of stuff. But that skill set, you got to master that. You can't just do beach waves and long hair, long layers for the rest of your life. You at some point in time,
Yeah.
you got to take a deep dive.
Yeah. And that's interesting. And I'm not sure if I want to jump into that right now or later, but I find that right now, like, our industry has taken a kind of a veer to off course, I'm just going to say.
That's an
Because
understatement, maybe.
I hear so many people talking about, their clients just don't seem to be coming in, or if they're coming in, I don't have staff that I can, that I have enough staff to service them. And I think part of it is when I talk to owners, and I've talked to thousands of owners that are having this problem, but of not having staff that they can hire. And I think part of it is that we've spent, and this is not a statistical fact, one that I
Right.
seen, and I'm just sort of making the stat right now, but I'm going to say for the last almost 7 years, 8 years maybe, is we've veered away from hair cutting, and it's just becoming about long hair so that colorists can do their amazing job that they do on long hair. We spent the last 10 years helping. Well, actually, it's been more than that. Probably almost 20 years with doing root extensions, so it looks, you don't have to have your 6-week client doesn't have to come in every 6 weeks. Now that we got long hair, they don't have to come in as regularly for their hair cutting. And I think that this veer that the industry took for change, for trend, whatever that might have been, I think it did a little bit of shooting us in the foot, as it were. And I'm sure that that might be a controversial statement, but I think it's one that our industry needs to address, is how do we get our clients back on a more reasonable timeline, much like, and that's why you look at the barbering right now, how, they're going in every 3 to 4 weeks, and we've
Yeah.
trained our clients not to come in every 6 weeks. So thoughts
Well,
on that?
I think it's a very salient point. I have students that are booked up solid, just doing beach waves and balayage, and their answer is, I'm going to go open my own place. And I'm like, no, you are not ready. But I'm booked. The clients love me. I'm in demand. I sell retail. I pre-book these clients, but to your point, they don't come in every 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. They come in every 8 or 9 weeks. And you know what? And obviously, who sets the pace are, the celebrities. If Jennifer Lopez cuts her hair off, it's great. Jennifer Aniston gets a haircut, it's great. They get new color, it's great. It will galvanize our business. So we've been in a transitional period. Look at all the Vidal Sassoon salons that have closed down all around the world. People don't demand that kind of work. But it's funny. I was talking to Stephen Moody the other day, and he said something. He said it's like a long dress. When the dress gets so long, the skirt gets so long that you're stumbling over it, then it's time to raise the length. Now, if that length gets so short that your privates are showing and it's just wacky, it is time to grow the skirt out. So we are in that transition, and it's it's one of those vicissitudes of life. It just happens, ebbs and flows. And when like I know what a great hair cutter you are, and I am, and luckily I've got my clients, all my clients love me. They're all from that Vidal Sassoon age. They're all in their 60s now. Not all of them, but a lot of them, they still love little graduations, and I still love doing them. If I had to do long hair, long layers, and beach waves, I'd shoot myself. I'm not cut from that cloth. I've defined my skills. I've got my, defining statement of what I do, who I am, and the quality work. And I've earned that right after all these years to do what I want to do. Now, when you're young, you got to do everything. You don't say no, you say yes. But when you migrate towards a certain level of skill, and you go, I like short hair. I love little bobs. I love little French bobs, layered bobs, graduated bobs, sponge bobs, whatever they are. I love these. And this is what I'm going to be known for. I want to be known as cutting the best bob, in my hometown. And I love that. I love that thinking,
Yeah. And it's interesting how that kind of thinking got you really, it's what started your build of your brand of Eric Fisher, who the hair cutter on the road. And I want to kind of spin this back right now. I'm going to give now, you said something really interesting where you said, I've got my clientele. I'm going to go out on my own right now. You are, you have such a qualities that very few people in our industry do. And I'm not blowing smoke here, but you're artistic, you're very creative, you're a photographer as well. You're an entrepreneur who teaches business as well. And probably any business magazine that's in our industry has either had you on covers or doing massive amounts of interviews and writing articles for them. So with that in mind, I want to kind of spin this around with, like, in our industry right now, the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who is self-employed going to start their own business. Because there is a big difference between being self-employed, where you're still managed by the clock. You still only can make the same amount of money that you could within the hour, versus entrepreneurship. You have I know you said you have 100 stylists working for you, but you probably got about, with the academy and everybody else, you probably got about 150 to 200 people that work for you. And that's to me, the big difference is, you make money while you sleep, whereas the person that's self-employed oftentimes is working harder for less money than what they would make working in a salon.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So what got you onto the entrepreneurship? That's kind of where I want to go with this.
Well, that's interesting because, I didn't have this prophetic vision of owning all these salons and these businesses. But when I came back to Wichita, I met a guy named Frank Carney, and he started Pizza Hut. I started cutting. Everybody wanted to come to me. I did all the guys that founded Rent-A-Center. Jamie Coulter, who's still a good friend of mine, had 324 restaurants. So I went to business school with these guys, and I would sit down, I'd cut their hair. Instead of a 30-minute haircut, I'd go an hour. And Jamie Coulter used to call me. He says, hey, I'm flying in. These guys all have private jets. They're all multimillionaires. I'm flying in tonight at 11. I need my haircut because I'm going to San Francisco in the morning. Can you do it? I go, what time in the morning? They go, no. I mean, I'm getting in at 11. Can you come down to the salons? I'd open it up, drink a couple bottles of wine. These guys would give me a lesson in business. What's your mission, your vision? What things do you, what are your strengths, your weaknesses? What are your core values, your principles? What do you think that is most important? What are your strategies to go with these visions? And it was amazing that what I learned. And things like, location. So I opened up the best location. All 4 of my salons are in the best locations. I pay more for them, best locations. Make sure that you manage the client's experience. So what does that mean? You look at the things that can go right and the things that can go wrong. And you don't just look at it, but you manage by that. Things like consistency with the client. You got to have that we test everybody to make sure that they are empathetic and caring, and that they care about the customer, that they will come in early or stay late or go beyond the call of duty for the client, whatever it takes. So I went to business school, and so we opened our first salon. And we were doing great, 1,147 square feet. My wife answered the phone. I had a colorist and assistant, just 4 of us, but we trained and trained. Everybody wanted to work for me. So about 3 times a night, we'd train for 4 or 5 hours. I'd have tons of people. I eliminated the people that could not hang in. And we grew fast. And so I went to Jerry Gordon, who was the double shift manager. So we started double shifting. We opened 7 days a week. We were open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., which I still do. All my salons are open 7 days a week. And then we got so busy, we decided to open another salon. So we did. We went out west, opened another. We opened another salon because we were so busy. And because we train our own staff, they imprinted the culture of the company, the standards. It's a self-policing, culture. By the way, the best definition of a culture I've ever heard, and this applies to me so well and to you, like-minded people coming into an environment where they can thrive as individuals and thrive as a whole. The key is that like-mindedness. So I wanted everybody, whether this is right or wrong, but to imprint to my standards, to do what I wanted, because I felt like I knew, I'm the head.
What was your vision?
Yeah, it was my vision. And then I was so disappointed with the beauty schools because we'd have to retrain everybody. And I said, I went to all the schools, and this is true, all the schools. I like these guys, but they weren't running a good show. So I said, let me put a training program together for you. I wouldn't even charge you. I'll send my creative director in, I'll help. We'll put this train, and all of them were, thank you, Eric, but it's too complicated. We don't want to do that. We're happy with what they were. So I said, well, I'm going to be formative competition, and I'm going to open up a school. And so I felt like I could ameliorate the bad things, capitalize on the good things. I was very idealistic. I went around to some of the best schools in the country, hired the smartest person I could find, who was just brilliant. She was a consultant, paid her lots of money. And I said, I want the best school in America. And so we did that. And in fact, our loan default rate, I'm really proud of this, before COVID was 3%. That means that 97% of my students pay back their loans. And we have students from New York, from Texas, from LA, from Chicago, all over. And we did that because I didn't really care about the money. I overhired. Everybody gets more mannequins. What I cared about, money has always been a byproduct for me. It's a commitment to your capability, I guess, a validation of hard work. But I didn't do it for the money. I just want to have the best students. I want to love what I did. In fact, I was at the school today. We started a new class. I always go, every new class, I'm there. I give everybody my phone number. I'm like, wow. I'm like the head cheerleader. I'm so excited you guys are here. I can't wait till you discover it. Some will be intimate like me and you, and some won't. You just accept that. But so that's kind of how it happened. And then we saw with our school that we were missing a beat. What is missing this? We've got great technical skills, but we realized that we needed business skills. Yeah. And nobody likes the numbers, including me, by the way. But, you look at your steps, you count your miles, the price of gasoline, you look at your calorie count. So we decided that the business skills are so important. And the same thing we've been doing every Tuesday night after class. We say, okay, you're cutting hair real good. Rebook that appointment, sell some retail, ask for a guarantee. Let's leave a Yelp review. What does that sound like? And so we worked on these things. So what we did is, once again, I hired the smartest people I could find, Chris, And I said, okay, you guys are all professors. You're a lot smarter than I am, but here's my content. I've done books and tapes on this forever, And I said, I want you to take this and dwell it down into content that is engaging for students. It's got to be engaging because people don't pay attention. Learning is
Especially
difficult.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now. And so they did that. That their Prosper You was born about 10 years ago. And then we said, how can we make it better? So I'm at the Prosper You office right now. And right now we have probably close to 10,000 students using our program around the United States. And it's the funnest thing I do. Like I said, I was just in Chicago and I'm at a bar, right? I just get in, got my luggage, go to the bar, see my friends. This girl comes up to me and says, oh my God, you're the Prosper You guy. And I go, oh yeah. No, Chris, I used to be known as a badass hairdresser. Now I'm known as the Prosper You guy, the numbers guy.
Well, listen, I mean, I think number one, you're still both in my mind, but the reality is what I love that you were just talking about was how you systematized. And I think that's the area that kind of so many people I want to get my shingle on the front of the salon.
Yeah.
And because I'm good and I've got a lot of clientele and I bring them in, they do that. But I think that the same thing with me, I knew, I'm going to say poop from Shinola, but I didn't know anything about business, but it just happened that some of the training that I got from, our sales consultants, and because then there's sales consultants, and we've got some amazing sales consultants right now, and I always look up to them because they're our pipeline to the classes that are going on. They're the ones that go, listen, this class is coming up, and to me it was creative. It was about hair. It was about all of the things, photo competitions, blah 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 blah. Yet the one thing I was lacking was the business side, and our sales consultants are the one that turned us onto that. And to me, that I think is what really makes the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who just owns a business and is self-employed, is doing what you did, where is it scalable? What do I do to establish systems? What do I do to hold people accountable so that we can grow together based on the vision that we have for the overall?
Well, very well stated. And I always say, I'm not a good manager. Managing is about implementing policies and procedures. It's about understanding the business side of it, hiring, firing, regulations, and all that. Leadership is about having a vision for your company and about movement. And it's not about stillness and stagnation. It's about movement and change. So I've always been a great vision guy, but I've never been a great manager. I mean, Jess, who runs Prosper You, I couldn't do what she does. She's amazing. She does so much better than I do. I could never be in that position. The people that run the salons, they are much better at managing than I am. I don't want to have to tell somebody, well, you got to show the work up on time. You got to dress right. I don't do good in those roles. And the same way with the school. Stephanie runs a school and she does an amazing job. So one of my gifts with entrepreneurship is always hiring people that are a lot smarter than I am.
Than you are. Exactly.
In every category. Aaron, who's our customer service liaison, is amazing. He just hosted our annual event, Meeting of the Minds. I couldn't have done it better than that. He was amazing. He just dotted his I's, crossed his T's, and he's entertaining and engaging at the same time. Yeah. So I think part of my gift was see weaknesses in everything, and I can walk down an aisle of a beauty store and say, make the aisle bigger, put your best products at eye level, dust these shelves off. You only have 2 of these. You need at least 5 of them. I can do that real easily. But am I the guy to do it? I don't know. I'd prefer that somebody else knows that and does that. So when you see weaknesses,
that is the part of being a true leader, though. It's one of my fortunates, and I'm in my life thankful for a gentleman by the name of Blair Singer, and Blair is part of the Rich Dad Poor Dad group, and that's where we got a lot of our teaching style, our business style from.
Love that.
And there's a story, and I can't remember if he told it to me or if one of his other disciples told it, but he was doing an interview with John Maxwell, the
John Maxwell.
doing traits of leadership, etc. and he was having a conversation with him, and he were talking about, giving away all your information. Like, what do you do? Like when, I'm probably misquoting some of this, but the gist of it was, he said, look at what happens when somebody gives away everything that they do. Like, and some people tend to hold back because I don't want them to know everything. Otherwise I'm not necessary. And John Maxwell said something that was so profound. He said, your job as a leader is to to hire people that are smarter than you are and better than you are, and make and grow them to be even bigger so that they can help you. And I'm not saying it in the brilliant way that he did, but that's what I see that people like you do. Is you say, look, that's not an area that I like. I'm going to do what I do well, and I'm going to buy
Yes.
somebody else, pay them to do that for me.
Two things I'll say. First of all, if anybody out there doesn't read John Maxwell, he's fabulous.
Yeah.
You should read him, and you become what you think about. So, focus in on these good writers. Watch good artists. The second thing that I would say is, Steve Jobs said this. I think this was in his book, that when he hires people, he's hard. There's a book called Radical Candor out there that talks about how to talk with people, how to deliver the message. Yeah. And he delivers his message really strongly, but he will tell you, I didn't hire you so I could tell you what to do. I hired you so you could help me make my company better. You can tell me what needs to be done. And I love that. And that's what I tell my people when they say, I paint the big picture. I want these guys that have master's degrees in education, whatever they have, to say, this is what we need to do. And this is how we should do it. And that's what I love. I love my people. And sometimes we butt heads. Jess and I go head to head constantly about content and things. But you know what? I value, and I never deprecate their decisions, but I value them. And then once we made that decision, I will never, usurp their authority or their capability. I always let them run with it. Sometimes it's the wrong decision, and that's okay, because you're going to make mistakes. Like I told this class this morning, I said, hey, by the way, don't think that, first of all, don't ever let the past, failures influence the future successes, because you are going to fall on your ass. I guarantee you. You're going to make mistakes. Client's not going to love you. I still have that. I cut a haircut the other day. The client came back in and said, I think one side's longer than the other. And I didn't say, well, it grew out faster than the other side. I didn't say that. I said, I made a mistake. Deep apologies. I screwed up. And it's okay to admit your mistakes. And it's okay, especially when you're learning and you're growing. I still make mistakes. I still, have done things that are just really, I made precipitous decisions based on stuff that I was totally wrong. And my ego is big enough to say I was wrong. I admit my mistakes. In fact, I'm married, so I do it all the time. So,
and my wife is sitting here, so I'm just going to have to nod and agree. So I love what you're talking about mistakes. And when I look at Eric Fisher, and later on, I want to talk about how we actually met. That I think that's it's a wonderful story, and I still cherish that moment. But when people look at you, and if they're just hearing about the things that you do, creative, won awards, like what was it? Like you had like 25 or some odd nominations for NAHA with you and your students. You help your students do things for that. You do the photography yourself. You're an entrepreneur. You have successful salons. You have an academy with Rover Run with students in there that love the training you give them, and when you're on stage doing hair as Eric Fisher, the humble, generously humble person that I know, people would look at you and they'll go, well, that's just totally unattainable for me, because they see you on stage, hear about your accolades, they watch you do this hair that they feel, oh my God, will I ever get to be able to do that? And if so, would somebody ever hire me to be on stage? And I think it's really important that people know that I'm just going to call it, we fuchsia up as well as everybody else does. We've done things that wrong paths or whatever. So what are, like, just is there things that, like, mistakes that you've made along the way that you would say, don't do that? If we could just hear some of those that you would give advice for other people.
Well, I always tell, like I told these students, be a possibility thinker. Think about the possibilities for you. And then I follow that with, if they, people say to me, hey, Fisher, I want to be rich and famous like you. How do I do it? And my first question is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing
Yeah.
to do? And it all comes down to, what are you willing to do? And for me, it's been a labor of love. I'm simple minded. I get focused on something I want to do, like photography. I was a freelancer. I worked with so many great photographers that I always felt like I could take pictures. So I just started doing it. I was terrible in the beginning, but I've gotten passable, pretty good. But as far as the stage stuff, oh my gosh, Chris, you and I probably have so many war stories. I fell off a stage in San Francisco in front of 1,000 people, right off a 5-foot high stage, and everybody goes, "Ooh!" And I go, I'm okay. Well, let me tell you, I think I broke my back falling off the stage, but I just fell off. It just happened. I was doing a show in London one time for 5,000, the Hair Congress thing. And I got my comb got stuck in somebody's hair on stage. Most beautiful woman I've ever done in my life. She was absolutely fabulous. She was half Chinese and half Jamaican, and my comb is stuck in her hair. How embarrassing, I have made so many mistakes. It's unbelievable. I was shooting for Cosmopolitan magazine one time in Mykonos or Santorini or someplace. And I went out the night before, went to a club, we're drinking, we're breaking plates, I'm on the tables. Well, guess what? I didn't wake up the next morning, and the boat is leaving without the hairdresser, right? And oh my God.
No.
Oh, it was terrible. And they're spending, obviously lots of money on this shoot. They were so pissed at me, so I still do stupid stuff. And I hopefully I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. And I've made so many mistakes. When I was younger, like I said, I let my ego get in the way. I used to think I was the cat's meow, and then I realized that people didn't like me because of that, and I just thought I was too good. So, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall down. You pick yourself back up, and they call this generation the resignation generation of kids, because they don't have the fortitude or the resilience to see things through. Well, I don't think that's a fair title or label. I think if they could just reach that sweet spot like you and I have, where somebody looks at their hair and they go, oh my God, I feel great. I've been feeling so depressed, and, the dogs, got the flu. My husband left me. I ran over the mailman, but you make me feel so good. There's nothing like that feeling, or they sit down and they tell you, only you, about their problems. I've got cancer.
Right.
Nobody knows. And I thought you should know, as you've done my hair forever. And by the way, I go to people's homes all the time because they are disabled, having challenges. They've been clients for years, and I don't charge them. I don't, I do it because I love them, and they love me. And that's at the end of the day, it's not about the money. It's about the relationships. And if you give up every time you have a mistake, then you'll be a fundamentally, pedestrianly flawed individual. You just got to work through it, like you have. You don't reach your level of attainment by giving up. And I know you struggled. I've struggled. And because we're old guys, we've done what we've done, and it's not always easy. It's not a cakewalk. It's about hard work, but it's about that kind of dedication. You want to be there, and sometimes it's like practicing basketball. You got to get under the rim. You got to throw the ball up. Well, I don't feel like it. Only, learning stops at a certain place, and greatness stops. You got to do that perfect practice. You got to get through those stages. And then it's like a merry-go-round. You push and push and you push and you push, push. And then guess what? You can jump on and you can coast for a while. But you got to do a lot of pushing before you start coasting. And you and I, we're at that great stage in our life where, if we wanted to sit back, and I know you're such an entrepreneur, you're probably 10 different businesses, some people just can't give that up. You and I are two of those people that will be like we are till the day we die,
Yeah. And, it's this again, I always say I'm not smart enough to come up with this stuff on my own, but I'm a great study and I listen well when my teachers are telling me something. And there's two things that you hit on, and I'd like to sort of wrap up in, not the conversation, but in that context. The the part about being a perfectionist, because I can honestly, hi, my name is Chris, and I'm a perfectionist. Hi, Chris. But when I wore that badge, I wore it like a badge. I'm a perfectionist, and my teacher told me, and this is one that I think that people just need to write down, hang, make a sign about it. And have it around your house so it takes you out of that mode. And that was, my teacher said, if you are a perfectionist, you are doomed to a life of frustration. Doomed to a life of frustration, because there is no such thing as perfection as a human being, So, and I know it, I do it. I've been trying my best to get away from my perfectionist side, and sometimes can drive my team crazy with it. So we had to adopt, and they came up with the help of my business coach. I think everybody should have them. We've got an 80. One of our rules is 80 and done. Is that number one, if you can do a project, just get started on it, and if you can sell it, then you've got to do it. But you only have to get it to 80% before you launch it. If you're constantly waiting for something to be 100%, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
So get it to 80%, launch it, then tweak, make things better as you go along. But it's never going to be 100%. So that's my advice to people is 80-20 rule. Just I think 80 is done.
If I could piggyback on that, I think you're absolutely right. The 80-20 percent rule is fabulous. And you know what? And I was a perfectionist like you. And it was really hard. I'd follow the client out to the car, finishing the haircut. I used to do these shoots where I would be a maniac, and the photographer would say, Mr. Fisher, Eric, could you get the hell out of the scene and let me shoot this? Nobody's going to notice what you're doing anyway, But you did have to step back and realize that sometimes it's not going to be exactly perfect. And perfectionists, oh my God, perfectionism it's really hard. I remember watching you. I was in your audience. I think it was a Redken show you were doing, and I always admired your work, always. And I didn't know you really well, but you were doing this set on pipe cleaners and long hair.
I remember.
Oh my God, it was perfect. I mean, I'm like, how that must have taken. He must have gotten up at 2:00 in the morning to start this set. It was like a 10:00 show. I said, how did Chris Bear? I got to ask him how he did that. And it was just amazing. And so I went home, of course, got the pipe cleaners out. I go, I don't have the patience for this. I don't know how he did it, but it was, I don't know, it was just incredible.
I don't remember the exact, I remember that. I don't remember the exact show, but I do remember that I kind of I went from what made me get rid of the pipe cleaners was, and evolved it was, I remember doing a show somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember where it was. And in those days, we all had to do that finale. We had to do a finale in the evening, gratis. The manufacturer or the distributor said, we are having an event in the evening. You bring on 1 or 2 or 3 models, do a presentation. And this is, I'll kind of lead from this into how we met. But I remember I went, okay, good. I've got this pipe cleaner set. I'm going to do the pipe cleaners. And I would do you hook it through, then you wrap it around, and you got these amazing curls out of it. And I said, okay, I'm just going to do the set. And I've got 5 minutes. I'll take the pipe cleaners out and on stage and then just run my fingers through it. And so 10 minutes later, I still haven't got these damn pipe cleaners out of the hair. And it was total disaster. Anyway, I think I don't even know if I finished it, or I think I pulled out, did some of it, the rest of it in, and walked off stage. And I went, oh my God. So we evolved it where I would take and strip down, the cables that you got for your dryer, and you had all the cording that was inside there. So I would strip all that copper wire out, and I made probably about maybe 18-inch hairpins, and we made that out so they would just slide out. That solved that problem, but
it was a smart idea. That's great.
Well, yeah, but it was a screw up on stage. And quite frankly, I don't know if they ever had me back after that one. But now I want to talk a little bit about how you and I met. I don't know. And sometimes the way when I talk to my wife about how we met, our stories are different, but I think well, she's not here right now, so I can say mine was the correct one. But what's your recollection on the way that we first met at a show?
I know that you and I have been doing this, both of us, for well over 35 years, probably 40 years doing shows. I think you, and if I can't, it seems like we were in a bar at a show, in a hotel bar, and drinking, but I can't recall exactly. But I think a lot of great relationships happen in the bars at shows, and not that you have to be an alcoholic or anything. I mean, I enjoy a bevy now.
Well, that's where the camaraderie starts.
That's where the camaraderie, and you break bread, you drink. So that's that's kind of my recollection. I always admired you.
I remember that. I remember being there, and then I think the part where there was you, Brian, and Sandra, and I. We were in the bar, but then what cemented the deal for me was when we had to do that evening. We had to do one of those gala presentations, evening presentation. Yes, and I remember that. I don't remember the order that we were on or who went first, who went last, but we would all line up and get ready for your 5-minute presentation or whatever. And you were with one manufacturer, I was with another, and Brian and Sandra were with another one. And and I remember going up to them, and you generally wouldn't go and associate with the other people. That was kind of taboo at the time. Not what we did it, but the way we operated. But I remember going up to them and saying, "That hairpiece that you made is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen." And we kind of set it up there. And then three of us were lined up backstage, ready to do our order of our walk on, and we were watching on the monitors. It was all rear projection, so you could see what was going on. And one group went on with a model in a Red Ryder wagon, and the audience was all drunk. They paying no attention to no attention to what was going on stage, chattering around. It was just a real fiasco. And I remember the three of us getting together, and nobody was applauding on anybody's presentation. And I remember we looked at one another and went, "I'll applaud for you if you applaud for me." The main applause we were getting was from behind stage. But I think that was what really cemented getting together before. And then after at the shows is just really supporting one another, even though we were from different manufacturers.
Well, I think, at certain levels, there's no competition, and I know sometimes the manufacturers are like that, like, they're the enemy, you want to get their audience and your audience. But I remember, I think that was actually a NAHA show, and we were the entertainment. And back in those days, you're right, we did it at night. They had a black tie dinner. And that's what I think it was. And anytime that, we used to do these club shows all the time. I was a creative director for a company back in Los Angeles for about 8 years. And that's how we did it. We'd rent out a club. We would hire a producer to produce the show, hire the best models, the skimpiest outfits, but everybody would be drinking. So if you thought you were going to make a presentation, forget it, because people are talking. It is. And I love those shows, even though, you're not there. Nobody's going to buy anything. You're just there to make an impression, And if guys that are good talkers like you on stage or me, they're not going to listen to us because nobody's listening to anything. They're having fun. But I do remember that. That was a great time. I've always, and seriously, there's a group of people I've always admired. You're always on that list because your capabilities, your commitment, everything was there. And I thought, this guy is going places. And you did. You've done so great for yourself. And, you want your friends to be successful. You want them to, own companies and sell companies and make money and love what they do. And, you admire that. You want people in our industry to be super, super successful. When somebody starts a company and sells it, you and I know, at least a dozen people that have done that. And I'm always so damn happy for them. And,
exactly.
It makes me,
gives you joy. When you see people in the trenches, you want them to be successful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if they're working hard and, if you can help them at all, you do. That's what good people do. They reach out, they help. They're not competitive. They're competitive. Don't get me wrong. You and I do a show on stage. I'm going to kick your ass, and you're going to kick my ass, by the way. And then we're going to hug each other and have so much fun doing it,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah.
that's the fun
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. I think, well, you have to do a job. You're doing your job. But it's just like, and whether people love or hate sports, I
Yeah.
love when I see, even if you don't like fighting on stage, whether you call it a sport or not, I do. But when you watch MMA or boxing or whatever, and I don't like the trash talk, but what I do like is when somebody gets in there competitive. In this case, they're trying to beat the hell out of one another.
Yeah.
But then after they, greatest respect, they hug one another, congratulate one another, and I think that's what it is, because they can show that they're going through competition, but it's not based on anger. And I think that's what happens in our business is you've got to work. You can work for somebody else. You can work down the block, but you're still hairdressers and you still can communicate. You're still,
That's
if you're
right.
on stage, you can still be friends, communicate, jam with other people is what I think is what gets you even better than what you can on your own. Cause I'm a collaborator.
You, you just said it. I mean, everybody's got something to give. Everybody's got gifts and talents, and I think that I love the boxing. And we actually sponsored an MMA fight not too long ago. We
Nice.
love that, and I think it's emblematic of life. I mean, some people want to get in the arena, some don't. I mean, it's your choice. You don't
Right.
always have to be the best at what you do. If you
Yeah.
can find personal satisfaction, if you go to work every day because you want to be there, not because you have to be there. If you love it, even if your prices aren't high, you work in a small town. I got lots of my students work in small towns here in Kansas, Great Bend or Liberal, and they love going to work and they make a good living. Now, good living there is different than a good living, in where you live in or New York City or Miami. You got to make big bucks there to survive. But I love that, and I think that you got to be the architect of your life. You got to decide what you want. You're in charge. You're the director. You're the producer. You're everything. You've got to think. And I think the biggest problem that a lot of people have is they don't really take the time to think about what they want to be, where they want to go, what kind of life they really want. They let life happen to them, as opposed to
Right.
guys like you and me that have pushed life. We've pushed life in every direction. We
Yeah.
decided that we wanted to be great. We decided to work really hard. We decided to go into business, but maybe we were naive at first, but we learned as much as we could about it. We're constantly learning, constantly evolving. Our lives are about movement and change, and not
Yeah.
about sitting still and, hey, what's on the next Netflix? I mean, I
Yeah.
wanted to go to Paris to learn from Jean-Louis David and Jacques Desage and Harlow's, and I'd go. I worked in Paris doing hair for photographers, but I love watching really good hairdressers. And how do you do 50 people in one day? How do you
Yeah.
cut 50 like John Louis David does, or
Yeah.
75? And then Andre Schrucky in Washington, D.C. will do 80, 90 people a day, and how do you do that? I've got a friend of mine that this is unbelievable. They're two twins. I do a haircutting masterclass down in New Orleans every year. And these girls take my class. I love them. They've been to Wichita. I love them. And average ticket, $327, 26 clients a day. Each one of
Wow.
them brings in between $7,000 and $10,000 a day. Really, and I'm not making this up. It's unbelievable. We brought them in for Prosper U to do a live event for us. Like, these girls make bank. Are they the best hairdressers in the world? No. But what they're the best at, they're the best at making their clients love them and being absolutely intractable about their prices. You get a color, everybody gets a color. You get a conditioner. It's not, well, I don't really need one. You either need shine, moisture, or your hair is a little damaged. You need something
Yeah.
to some protein. So, I love that. I think that's amazing. Could they cut the best little graduated bob in the world? No. But they're going to
Yeah.
make 100 times more money than most people do. They're amazing individuals. So everybody's got their certain gifts and talents. And I think, for our audience, I'd just say, You got to find out who you are. And you
Yeah.
and I have been lucky enough to do that, but it's not, I've got 4 kids, and some of them struggle. Yeah, I've got 2
Yeah.
of them in the business. I want my son to go in the business. He's, really a big kid. He says, Dad, I'm too big to bend down like you do. But he says, I do like the scenery. It looks like it'd be a lot of fun. I'm like, that's the wrong reason, but that's
Uh-huh.
why your old man did it,
Yeah. You said something really profound there about um, those twins that they're charging what 375 is their average ticket.
Average
Um,
ticket, yeah,
you know,
328, yeah.
yeah, Simon Bowen is another. He's been another one of our great teachers that we've had in our company, and he talks about your finding your genius model, and he talks about that when it comes to pricing, it's not just you can have what people hear, see, and feel right up front. So this is what I'm selling, this is what I'm doing. If it's just about what you can hear, see, and feel, then it becomes about price. But he says you've got to take them into that. So that's the tangible. You take them into the next area, which is the intangible. How you make them feel, etc. And then people will pay more money. There's more value because of the way you make them feel. But he said, and that's what I recognize that these twins are doing, is they've taken their customers into the transformational area.
Yes.
In other words, the zone where they're transforming lives and transforming people, and people will pay any amount of money for that. And I think that's the key right in there, that the more value you give, the more transformation that you do with people. Whether that's your haircut, your color, your balayage, a retail product that you're recommending to them, you've got to
Or
take it to that transformational area.
how you make people feel.
Yeah,
And I think you're right. I think people today sometimes have a scarcity mentality as opposed to a mentality of abundance. And
abundance, big
and
deal.
it, life will give you whatever you ask it.
Yeah,
And I think people are afraid to ask. These girls have created such a great atmosphere with what they do. So they've got a big round table in the back. In the mornings, everybody sees the same person they saw 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks
right.
ago. They have coffees and donuts. It's a social thing. It's a social table. In the evenings, it's the same thing. These guys, hey, I saw you 5 weeks ago. It's the same group of people. They sit at the table. They have wine. They have snacks. And they've created that kind of luxury where people and everybody looks great. The hair is always beautiful. It is transformational, as you said. So I always tell my students, you can be an order taker or an order maker. You can set the client down in the chair, and I was a freelance makeup artist for a while, so you can say, hey, you know what? Have you thought about defining your brows, because it would open up your eyes? Or when you put on your eyeliner, you're using a pencil, and that's good. Follow it with a brush and use the same color, but you want a tapered brush. I mean, squirrel hair is really good. And then just massage it in there so you can't see where that eyeliner stops or starts. And by the way, you should curl your lashes. You got great lashes, curl them. Put that eyeliner next to your lashes. Or, have you thought about some highlights around your face, because it would make your blue eyes look bluer and your skin tones look better? Or, you know what? A fringe on you, a bang would look absolutely amazing. We don't have to do a deep commitment here. But when you partner and you intrinsically have your client's best interest at mind, they will drink your Kool-Aid. And I'm going to brag on one of my estheticians. Friday had $1,000 retail day, over $1,000 in retail, $1,000, one person, an esthetician. And does she know how we retail our system at Prosper You? Absolutely. But she is just magnificent. And you know why? Because she really cares. She's given me facials. She'll like, Eric, I can tell you've been out in the sun too much. Eric, I can tell, you need to moisturize in the mornings and at night. Eric, you're doing a great job with your face. I want to tell you, it looks really, really good. So I think, and I tell this to my students, don't just be their hairdresser. Don't just be their esthetician or their nail person or their barber. Be their partner. Really have that intrinsic motivation in mind that you really care. And the difference, and a lot of people don't understand this or realize this, but tips are a big deal. So if somebody like you gross 100,000 in total sales, 20% is our average tip in our company. And we know this because we use Tippy, 20%. So that's 20 extra $1,000.
Right.
But it's not just about good service, because good service, you go to a waitress, you got good service, she does everything, you spill your water, she wipes it up. But a different level is when she gets down and at your level and she looks at you and she says, here's our specials. But I don't think it's the best thing on the menu tonight. I would try this. Or if you like seafood, try that.
Right.
She really is, really is caring. Even though you might not even know her, then you don't leave a 20% tip, you leave a 25% tip because
Yeah.
she's blown
Bingo.
you away. Yeah,
Bingo.
so it transcends past just doing the right thing, smiling, mentioning the client's name, into partnerships, into really caring about that individual. And I love that. And not everybody has that gift. And
No.
I always say, fake it till you make it. You got the flu, you missed work, you don't feel good, you ran over the mailman, but you're on your best. You're doing your best that you can possibly do at that moment. You're on stage. You don't get that opportunity always, and that's why you got to make the best of every situation.
Yeah. Bingo. So listen, we're gonna sign off with this one last thing here, and our tag that we have for this uh, podcasting is that successful people have this saying, and it's called Goya. I think it's the real translation for it is get off your ass. So what do you have to get off but ours is get off your assets. Like what asset do you have that you need to do to help to get you grow? So with our audience that we've got right now, what would you say that the Goya, what do they need to do uh, in order to be successful and have the degree of success that they want?
Well, I mean that I could talk hours on that statement, and I do believe that it gets people thinking. But I always say successful people tend to define the outcome first.
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing a haircut, I might have discoveries and change my mind, but I've defined what I want to do first. In
Yeah.
business, I've defined the outcome of my school. When I opened the school, I knew exactly. And then you have to have strategies. It's like the things that you value. Like one of my personal core values is good health. So
Yeah.
what am I going to do for good health? What's my strategy? Well, I brush my teeth, wash my hands, I work out, I eat right. And I don't just do it once in a while. I don't go to the gym, once a month and work out for 8 hours. It's little by little, day by day.
Yeah.
Everything builds up. It's having that consistency. So I would say define the outcome, define the strategies, define the values that you value out of that outcome, have strategies for those values. And then, even when you don't feel like it, you do it inch by inch, day by day. I always, think of success like you're going to the top of a mountain. Top of the mountain is prime, Chris, for success. That's when you're booked. You go to work because you want to be there. You're making lots of money. You're having lots of fun. You're traveling. You're learning. But on the bottom in beauty school, you got to take that path. And that
Yeah.
path isn't easy. It gets dark, it gets rainy, it gets scary. You lose your way, you fall down, you get splinters. You go, should I give up or should I keep going? Well, everybody can get
Yeah.
to the top if they desire. So you just keep going. Now, if you got a coach like you or like me that says, hey, here's the mistakes I've made, try to avoid these, or here's the path I took, I think this is the right path, then you get up to where, you're above tree line. You can see things clearly and you see the top of the mountain. You're not that far away. You just work a
Yeah.
little harder. Then that sweet spot
Yeah.
comes. But if you haven't defined first that you want to get to
Exactly.
the top of the
Definition.
mountain, then and like the road less traveled, if you don't know where you're going, any
Yeah.
road can take you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said about you have to define what it is that you want. My areas that I've gone into in the last while is where I've evolved into is more into the coaching, into helping people get what they want and so on, training, etc. But the one thing that I found that fits so well when you say direction, and understanding that, particularly people when you're starting out and learning something, is that you're going to screw up and you are going to make mistakes. But what I've been telling people, look at, if you're training somebody, before you train them, sit down with them and say, what is it that you want? What do you want to be? And if that's, I want to be XYZ hairstylist, I want to be earning this amount of money, I want to have a home and a car and so on. And I want to be able to feel. So if you can get them to say, what does that look like? What does it feel like? And what you want to be able to do with it. You see it? That's so you're helping them with their vision. Then when they have a hard time, and because they all know it, they can do something, whether you're the type that mopes or breaks into tears or has an anger moment or whatever that might be, as your coach, if you can go back to them and just say, okay, let's go back to what's your vision again, and then all of a sudden the mistake that you made becomes very minuscule and it's easy to get past. So
I absolutely love that. It kind of reminds me of I used to read all of Zig Ziglar's books, and he said something like, "You've got to believe it before
Yeah.
you can see it.
Right.
You got to believe in yourself, and you can't let those challenges, those mistakes, define you as an individual. You just got to realize, when you read history, the greatest people in the world, the Thomas Edisons, the Abraham Lincolns, the people that define history for us, all were riddled with challenges and mistakes and bad turns and this and that. But they had the fortitude and the tenacity to work through those challenges and to get to where they are or were. And that says everything. You can't give up. You can't be that resignation generation. You got to say, I'm intrinsically motivated to be more, do more, and have more. And this is what I'm going to do. You just can't give up, and people give up too early, too soon.
Yeah. I'm with you, brother. So I just want to say that it has been a pleasure to know you as a friend, get to know more about you as an entrepreneur. I mean, I've known about your businesses, but listen, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, and I love the fact that your title is talent developer, but if people want to stay in touch with you, or what is your Insta handles, etc., how can they get a hold of you if they want to know more about you?
I would say probably just DM me on Instagram. It's Eric Fisher Hair. And, Eric Fisher Academy. We have Facebooks and Instagrams and all that social media stuff. But that's probably the best way. And I am inordinately busy, so I try to get back with everybody. I mean, if you call me, I'll call you back. But the best way is probably just through my Instagram.
Okay. All right, my friend. Well, listen, it was a pleasure and honor having the Eric Fisher here as my number one episode. And I look upon this very favorably, and it's been a pleasure and honor to have you on and to be able to call you friend. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on.
My pleasure. And you are a dear friend. And thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on your first episode. Thank you so much, Chris.